How to ride a Fondo. Okay, let's do this. Gonna be a bit backlit. Well, good morning. Now this has been a while since we've done something like this, hasn't it? That said, not sure how much we'll get done on the bike, but we should at least get a chance to talk about, okay, what the hell is a Fondo? So a Fondo, or a sportif, depending on where you live, is basically just a mass participation event. Sometimes what you'll see is different ride options, get as many people on bikes as possible. The other thing with a Fondo, it tends to be in a pretty unique location, particularly challenging, picturesque, scenic, historic, some sort of location like that that can draw lots of people to it. Probably not the Iron Coast Bridge. The other factor, while I wait for my Fondo partner, is Fondos tend to be, not all the time, but they are a timed event. So most Fondos will give you a timing chip or some sort of electronic timing that either exists in the numbering or something that you attach to your bike. Whilst participation is a massive part of it, just like a marathon or something along those lines, you get a time. So along with that comes the challenge of set yourself a goal to try and do a particular time. Along with the time comes a ranking, so you know, the fastest time, the slowest time, the fastest time over a certain part, that kind of stuff. We'll leave the whole is a Fondo or a race, which it isn't, to the end, but tends to be time. Gear. I'm not going to make much about gear because there's heaps of those sort of videos out there. Two things, tyres and chain. My opinion on the tyres situation, do not change them the day or two before. All good and well, go out, get new rubber, ride them for a couple of weeks. 2 weeks, just make sure the tubes are in the right place, they're bedded in nicely, you're familiar with how grippy they are. 2 weeks prep with the tyres, more than enough. Don't run latex tubes. Possibly worth looking at your chain. Again, not necessarily something that groundbreaking, but I've seen it happen a million times in the past. They're really the only gear prep things I want to talk about. Okay, let's get on to the controversial stuff. In the beginning I said this is a mass participation event, however it is timed. A lot of people, most people, will go into this event setting themselves a target time. Maybe it was the time they did last year, maybe it's the time their mate did last year. There's no silver bullet to riding a fast time, but there's a couple of little tricks you can definitely go for. The main one, the number one thing, try not to stop. Stopping is absolute dead time. Whether it be food stops, whether it be nature breaks, anything, it is dead time. That's all good and well for me to say you can just ride 180 k's without stopping. What can you do to maybe make that a little bit faster on yourself? Well, carry as much food and water as you possibly can. Obvious one, maybe with the water bottle, take an extra 1 or 2 plastic ones that you can throw in feed zones just to keep you moving. Stopping. Stopping is absolute dead time. Sometimes you've got to stop, but you've seen some of our videos in the NRS stuff, just do it really quickly. What can be a really good idea is if you're in a bunch, maybe try and get the whole bunch to stop.
So are we stopping for a piss here, or what's the story?
Probably not kosher, someone will tell me to not do that, but you know what I mean? If you can get 10 to 15 guys to stop with you, all of a sudden your bunch is still going, and it also speeds you up. Pull over, get it done. Keep moving, just keep moving. Okay, time to start talking about what I really want to start talking about, how to actually ride in the bunch in a Fondo. I don't think anyone's really talked about this.
set the scene. So you're right underneath the banner, away you go, first wave or whatever you want to call it. Now what do? You want every move that you do in this big, large group to be predictable. You just really don't know the abilities or the awareness of the other people in the bunch. So make your riding predictable. Having said that, if there are, early on, if there's some lumps and bumps, feel free, go to the front and ride as hard as you want. What do I mean by swapping off turns? Well, okay, in my experience, like constant paceline stuff doesn't really work with these sort of things. It just requires too many people to buy into it, and therefore what tends to happen is it breaks down. So a really good halfway is someone doing a 30-second to 60-second turn. Just seems to be long enough to kind of create enough of an atmosphere for the people behind to get interested. But I will say this, you are under absolutely no obligation to roll any of these turns, especially if you're communicating with the people in the ride. Like, there is nothing wrong with you saying to the guys, are you going to be riding this next little berg hard? And therefore, if they're going to come back and say, yeah, it'll probably be on, and you know you're not going to get over it, well, don't do anything. What can be really good in a Fondo, which is probably quite specific to it, is the general attitude of the people you're riding with. So we're discussing the concept here of a little pit stop in about 2Ks. Very discreet, I promise. Talk to guys and ask them about how they're doing, whether they need food. Later on you might need food off them, that type of thing. And look, one of the best elements of these events is this. Well, we're not at a Fondo now, but it's family orientated, it's relaxed, doesn't have the stress of a race. So isn't this lovely? We're all riding along, having a wonderful time, enjoying everyone's company. Well, why then does everyone finish in ones and twos? The terrain that these events tend to be held on are pretty selective. And so as things whittle on down as the ride gets longer and people stop and don't stop and all that type of stuff, you tend to find yourself either alone or in a very, very small group. The Fondo Sportive, what really should happen is
the terrain or the conditions dictate who you're riding with. So if their group is going too hard up a climb, don't feel like you need to follow it. That said, if you are the one feeling strong on the climb, go ahead, go nuts. But, and this is a big but, you're not attacking the bunch.
So this is kind of where it can all go wrong. This is the don't be a dick section. Let's set the scene. Maybe there's 20 Ks to go and you've been in a small group of 5 to 8 or something like that. Now don't be the guy, please don't be the guy who with 100 or 200 meters to go sprints in a Fondo. It's not done, okay? That's it, full stop. It probably doesn't even happen a K or 2K out. You are not attacking that small group. So what does happen is if, yeah, you are strong. Now look, come here. I'm gonna be really clear here. If you are stronger and there is some big hills towards the back end of this event, then go nuts. Ride as hard as you want, drop whoever you want. And this is kind of the main distinction in terms of the riding part, especially at the end between a Fondo and a race. You are not, I repeat, you are not attacking people at the end of these races. If you have worked with them, you finish with them. You're not sprinting the end of a Fondo. Cue some footage of me sprinting. Should you celebrate at the end of a Fondo?
There you go.
Do you reckon, Crafty?
A hurricane, wasn't it?
Now I realise a little bit of this has been a bit preachy, and I don't want it to come across like that. So, let's finish with this. You're there to challenge yourself. You're there to see what your boundaries are. Yeah, absolutely. Ride a tempo, ride within yourself. But the reason you signed up for this thing is because you thought it was a challenge. Make it a challenge. Hey Jesse, I'm going to do some vlogging on this ride. Is that okay? Yeah, sure, Chris. By the way, I'm doing time trial efforts. Probably should have sparked alarm bells.